Hello, everyone. On behalf of the NCSEA board and staff, welcome to the final event of this year's SEA Leadership Retreat. I'm Michelle Ryland, and I co-chair the Internal Communications Committee with Rob Butterfield, and we're so glad you're able to join us for the closing celebration. Maybe next year this can occur in person like it was originally intended. The SEA Leadership Retreat is the brainchild of this committee, and the topics presented over the last 3 days are 100% based off of feedback received from all of you. I hope that you were involved in some insightful and thought-provoking discussions and were able to meet some new people from across the country. We're all so busy, we're all volunteers, we're all tired of Zoom calls, but we have so much that we can learn from each other, and the only way we will is by showing up to have the conversation. So thank you for showing up. The retreat's final event will be the formal board transition ceremony that normally takes place at the summit. We will be hearing from Emily Guglielmo, NCSEA past president, and Ed Quesenberry, NCSEA president, who will take us through the ceremonial passing of the gavel and introductions of your new NCSEA board of directors. And if you stick around to the very end, we may just have a prize or two to share with you. A few housekeeping items that I'm sure you've heard of several times over the last 3 days, but I'm told I have to say them anyway. If you have questions during the event, please place those in the Q&A pod at the bottom of the screen so that they may be seen by the speakers. Questions for all of the speakers will be addressed at the end of the event. Please use the chat pod to interact with your fellow attendees and members, and the session will be recorded and made available after the event. And now it is my absolute pleasure to hand the mic over to NCSEA past president, Emily Guglielmo.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you so much to all of you for attending our leadership retreat. I hope you had a chance to attend some of the sessions over the past 3 days and can take back some valuable information to your SEA. I'd like to thank all of our facilitators and our thought leaders, and especially our committee chairs. This event marked the end of a very successful past year, and maybe more importantly, the beginning of a new year. But before I officially close the books and pass the gavel on to our next year, I'd like to spend just a few minutes to properly put a bow on this year. As it was for everyone, this past year was extremely challenging for NCSEA. It brought about some of our largest challenges, I would argue, in the history of our organization. We were the first board to transition to a new fiscal year, which challenged much of our timing, cadence, and tradition. As with the rest of the world, we faced the COVID pandemic and associated recession head on. And as a result, we spent the entire year without a single in-person meeting. We canceled our in-person summit for the first time in history, and we dealt with losing one of our own board members. But as we worked through incredibly difficult topics, decisions, we had some moments of productive tension. We shared long meetings, personal struggles, and tears. We acted with courage, conviction, and collaboration. So while COVID tried to slow us down, I'm proud to say it was no match for us. We hosted our first and second ever SEA leadership retreats, our first ever virtual summit, 2 board town halls, 2 economic outlook forums, an SE3 spring series, partnering webinars with MOs like SEOC and SEAOI, executed DEI initiatives related to education, partnering, scholarships. We hosted an unprecedented number of technical and non-technical webinars. We launched our NCSEA Foundation. We initiated a much needed digital upgrade, restructured our sales and marketing department, secured an expert partner to launch our PR and marketing initiative, partnered with our SEAs at the greatest level ever. I could go on and on and on. And if that list makes you tired, just imagine how the NCSEA staff are feeling right now. Joyce, Amelia, Kat, Dana, Monica, Leo, Susan, and Al. Thank you guys. You guys are the real stars of this show. You guys work quietly in the background. You don't just execute a vision set in front of you, but you have helped guide and lead NCSEA quietly and unassumingly. NCSEA is incredibly fortunate to have such capable and hardworking people committed to advancing our profession. I personally feel so fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with each and every one of you. I'd also like to just briefly personally thank my board for your commitment this year. I can say with certainty that this year was more work than any board member originally signed up for. I'd like to thank you each individually, John, Ed, Dave, Ryan, Rick, Paul, Eli, and Jamie. Specifically, thank you, Jamie, for saying yes to a board mid-year and jumping in with 2 feet. Thank you, Eli, for being a leader on some of our toughest topics, speaking with conviction, courage, strength, and passion. Thank you, Ryan, my confidant and friend, and my kindred spirit in over-volunteering and over-committing. Thank you, Dave, for being so thoughtful, hardworking, diplomatic, and balanced. I often think of you as the adult in the room. To the rest of my board, your thank yous will be coming shortly. But before we get to our board transition, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and remember our friend and past president, Susie Jorgensen. Susie served on the NCSEA Board of Directors from 2014 through 2020, including as our president from January through April of last year. Susie was a person who made an unquestionable impact upon NCSEA, our SEAs, and our entire structural engineering profession. While her presidential term was tragically shortened, she continued to serve as my quiet confidant and advocate over her last months. I'm confident that her leadership and vision will guide NCSEA for decades to come. As a board, we made a commitment to honor her by carrying on her legacy of leadership, licensure, and passion for structural engineering. To that end, I'm so proud to announce the creation of the NCSEA Susie Jorgensen Presidential Leadership Award. This award will be bestowed annually upon an engineer who embodies Susie's passion, vision, and legacy of leadership and mentorship, especially in support of younger engineers, women engineers, and underrepresented engineers. It will be awarded to those with visionary leadership in a particular initiative, such as SE licensure, or to a person who demonstrates leadership potential within our profession. The recipient of this award will be granted a scholarship to attend the summit, during which the award will be presented as part of the special awards program. In addition, there will be a dedicated time scheduled for the recipient to meet and interact with current NCSEA leadership, including the NCSEA president. And while I always envisioned Susie handing off the gavel to me, it's bittersweet for me to have the opportunity to honor Susie for everything she did for NCSEA. I'd like to recognize her husband, Steve, who's here with us today, her children, and her family friends. Thank you for sharing Susie with us. We hope you know how much she meant to NCSEA, her home SEA of Colorado, and before that, Nebraska, and the entire structural engineering profession. I'd like to now specifically recognize our outgoing board members. Both Paul and Rick joined the NCSEA board in 2018 as directors, with Rick coming from the SEA of Connecticut and Paul from the SEA of Texas. Both have long-standing contributions to their home SEAs and NCSEA. I'd like to start with a special recognition of Paul Riley. Paul's just completed his 2+ years of service as a director with the board. And during those 2 years, Paul brought a special business focus to our board. I'll admit that when the finance-heavy spreadsheets and projections come across the screen, my personal reaction is to disengage. But Paul, on the other hand, he'd perk up. The deeper the numbers or the financial strategy, the more focused Paul would become. So we could not have timed Paul's service to NCSEA better. Over the past year, our responsibility primarily was to ensure the financial viability of the organization through a challenging and very uncertain landscape. Paul was certainly an asset to NCSEA with his skills and focus. So thank you, Paul. You will be sorely missed on the board, but we're excited for you and your future endeavors, both professionally and personally. Next, I'd like to recognize Rick Boggs. Rick was one of those people who was a leader that I looked up to when I joined NCSEA. Rick's commitment to NCSEA is both deep and long-standing. In fact, even as he transitioned off the board a month ago, Rick was the first name I saw when I joined the Intro to NCSEA pre-session to this year's leadership retreat. Rick just can't quit us. He's a longtime advocacy committee member and past chair. He has always had a voice and a passion for public advocacy of the structural engineering profession. So it's only fitting that in Rick's last year with the board, we fully embraced his vision and committed to a partnership with a PR firm. Outside of board meetings, Rick is a pleasure to be around and a walking baseball encyclopedia, organizing board gatherings at baseball games. We can even forgive him of his bad habit of being a Yankees fan. So Rick, on behalf of NCSEA, thank you for all your years of service, but particularly your efforts over the last 2 years as an outstanding board member and advocate for NCSEA. And now I'd like to recognize our outgoing past president, John Schmidt, who's a founding member of the SEA of Kansas and Missouri. I had the pleasure of joining the board of directors with John nearly 6 years ago. Under John's leadership, NCSEA has transformed and grown. And during that time, we've had the pleasure of getting to know John, whether it's the little things like his love of chocolate or his uncanny ability to wordsmith a document, his Sudoku puzzle prowess, or his love affair with the state of New Mexico. And more importantly, we got to know the big things about John, like his passion for process, policy, history, and legacy of NCSEA. And more importantly, his deep love and commitment for his family. So those who know John, you know he's a man of words, both written and spoken. Words matter, and when John speaks, people listen. And I've listened, and there are a few things that John has said over the years that particularly resonate with me. The first, John's found tremendous success as a leader by focusing on the things he really excels at and delegating the other things, or as John likes to call it, the importance of staying in your lane. Well, those who know me are aware that I'm a person who's veering all over the road. I'm crossing all of the lanes and maybe leaving a few accidents behind me. So John's words have continually grounded me and refocused me, and I think many others too. So thank you, John, for bringing that focus to NCSEA. The second thing I've gathered from John's words of wisdom is the idea that the world is run by those who show up. John's urging that all people should find their niche, their passion, raise their hands and get involved, has motivated volunteers across NCSEA, grown our organization, and positioned us moving forward. With that, I'd like to thank John. Thank you for all your years of service at NCSEA as a member and past chair of the Advocacy Committee, as a past chair of the Structural Editorial Board, and an outstanding NCSEA board member and president. Your service to NCSEA has guided us through tremendous growth and positioned us for great things moving forward. I'd like to now hand off to the NCSEA staff for a special recognition of John.
Hi, John. I just wanted to tell you how honored I am to be able to talk to you in this manner. You're one of the most organized people that I know, and I've certainly had a thrill in getting to work with you. You're very well grounded as an individual, and the one thing I've always admired about you is you're family first focused, and I think that's something that we can all learn. Sometimes we get so hung up about doing work stuff, we forget what's really important, and that is our family. You have an excellent way of looking at the big picture of things and cutting through the minutia. And I enjoyed that. And when you were secretary of NCSEA, it was a lot of fun. You had a thing about the state capitals and the trips your family used to take to them. So I liked when you used to do roll call, and your roll call would be a picture of the different state capitol buildings. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. And also, you know, your help with the completing the transition when Al came on as the new executive director for NCSEA. Between the two of us, I think we were able to do a reasonably good job of getting him acclimated, because I know now he's doing an excellent job there, and that's you know, certainly testament to your leadership. So I thank you for that, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and I hope we get to interact in the not too distant future.
There's much to admire about John Schmidt. First of all, I really admire and I understand that he's a great engineer. but his leadership skills stand out to me. When I when SEAU hosted the what was then called the NCSEA annual conference, we followed right behind John Schmidt, having hosted it in his organization. And everybody just said, do what John did. Contact John. John knows how to do it. And I had the same experience when I took over as the editorial chair for Structure Magazine. Everybody just kept saying, do what John did. Contact John. He knows what to do. And I was always very impressed. John has always been very organized and a great leader.
The word that comes to mind is wordschmitting. Like the original word from which this is derived, this implies organization, precision, clarity, and maybe a level of attention to detail that borders on neurosis. But it also speaks to John's love of words, his phenomenal talent in the art of the written word, and most important, his interest in and willingness to take time to help his colleagues, fellow committee members, and board members. It's also a wonderful example or symbol of John's ability to make those around him and their work better, which is ultimately the mark of a great leader, isn't it? And John definitely is a terrific leader. I first met John when I attended my first NCSEA summit, which I think we called the annual conference back in 2003, and got to know him soon after as a member of the Clients and Prospects Subcommittee of the Advocacy Committee, which has since been absorbed into the Communications Committee. John was the chair of that subcommittee at the time. Not long after I joined that committee, a few members and I had a brief exchange of emails about raising the status of structural engineers, which is still a hot topic and one near and dear to our hearts to this day. John thought it was a great discussion and suggested we use the exchange as the basis of an article in Structure Magazine. I thought, yeah, that would be kind of fun. We should think about that, but didn't really think it was going to happen. Well, thanks to John's involvement and proactivity, a couple of months later, actually in April of 2005, you can look it up, the article Improving Our Lot was published in Structure Magazine. This is another example of one of John's great gifts. He's not one to ever let a good idea languish due to inaction or inattention.
I first met John when I went to my very first NCSEA conference, and it was actually also John's first NCSEA conference, and happened to be right after 9/11, the first time I think both of us had flown. And John really jumped in and then volunteered to have the NCSEA conference the next year in Kansas City. And that's leads into what the thing I most admire about John is that he's the most organized person that I know. I've told him this before and he's going to recognize that.
So back in 2015, John finished 10 years as the chair of the editorial board of Structure Magazine. And I was vice president of NCSEA at that time and also chair of the nominating committee. And I ran into him at an event and congratulated him and thanked him for his 10 years of service on the editorial board, and then very quickly segued into, hey, do you want to volunteer to be on the NCSEA board? And he thought about it and got back to me, and I'm so glad that he said yes and was able to serve on the board for several more years.
My final words to John would be in the form of a request. John, please stay by your phone because we're invariably going to need your help wordsmithing something at the board, and we really need your help. So stick by the phone. We'll be in touch.
Continue to be involved with NCSEA and continue to give your leadership skills to NCSEA because you've done great things, and I want to continue that trend. Thanks for everything you've done.
My advice to John as he departs from leadership at NCSEA is to do us all a great favor and don't disappear. You've been a fixture in the structural engineering community for your volunteerism on so many levels and in so many areas. You have a lot of information, a lot of leadership still, opportunities to guide and help the younger generation. So yes, take it easy, enjoy your time away from all of this responsibility, but don't disappear.
John, thank you for all that you've done over the years, for the work starting CECOM, for the work on the editorial board, and then on the NCSEA board. It's a better organization. The structural engineering profession is better because of the things that you've contributed. I hope that you'll settle down a little bit here and take a little bit of a break from volunteering, but I'm sure we'll see you around, and thank you for all you've done.
On behalf of the membership and staff, I want to thank you, John, for your dedication to NCSEA. From Structure Magazine to the board of directors, you have always been at the forefront, leading us on our path to success. We will miss you, your incredible dedication to the organization, and especially your wordsmithing. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you very much to everyone who was involved in putting that video together. I'm very humbled by it and very appreciative. I was going to lead with the fact that I'm glad at least one person, Emily, has been paying attention to all my words over the years. So that's always encouraging for a writer and a speaker to know that it hasn't gone unheard, unread, unlistened to, and so forth. In fact, some of the things that were mentioned are going to come up in what I have to say right now. You know, I suspect that anybody steps into any position of leadership, one of the primary goals is to leave the organization in a better position than how we found it. I'm blessed to be able to say honestly that we've achieved that during my 5.5 years on the NCSEA Board of Directors. I say we rather than I quite deliberately. At the 2018 summit in Chicago, as I was starting my term as president, I talked about how leadership is showing up, as Emily remembers. All of you have done just that, not only today, but many times, whether in person or more recently, virtually. So thank you. At the 2019 summit in Anaheim, as I was ending my term as president, I talked about how much I didn't accomplish during my year in between. I emphasized then and want to reiterate now that anything and everything we do is a team effort, including not only the volunteers, but also the dedicated NCSEA staff. So again, thank you. NCSEA has made tremendous progress over the last few years and is poised to continue doing so. Naturally, there have been and will continue to be growing pains along the way, but having worked side by side with many of you, I've never been more confident that the future is in good hands. It has truly been my pleasure and my privilege to serve with you. So one more time, thank you.
Thank you, John. With that, we're done looking backward and we are ready to move forward into our next year. And it's my pleasure to formally pass the gavel to Ed Quesenberry of SEA of Oregon. I'll say it's ironic that I'm handing the gavel to Ed because in many ways, he's been my professional mentor and advocate within NCSEA for many years. Whether bike riding through the Everglades, searching out the best empanadas in Miami, taking snowy walks over lunch in New York, catching a hockey game in DC or a baseball game in Chicago. Ed's not just a professional colleague, but a once-in-a-lifetime friend too. I feel incredibly fortunate to have had the opportunity to work professionally with Ed and to have a shared vision for the future of NCSEA. While Ed and I don't agree on everything, and to be truthful, we actually constructively disagree on many details, we're firmly aligned on the vision. I think we both see 12 o'clock as where we want to go. Ed may be pulling a little towards 11 and I may be pulling a little towards 1. But at the end of the day, our joint effort squarely balances us and gets us exactly where we need to go. So to the NCSEA membership, you're in incredibly capable hands. Ed brings a passion, humor, and a vision to NCSEA that's unmatched. His ability to speak eloquently, especially to audiences outside of our engineering community, has been and will continue to be a differentiator for NCSEA. With that, I'm honored to hand off the NCSEA presidency to my good friend, Ed.
Thank you, Emily. Very nice words, as usual. Well, now it's my turn to recognize Emily for her efforts as president. Hold on now, sorry. Technical difficulties. And pass the president gavel or receive the president gavel from her. So I put together a few words today. When I mentioned to Emily that I'd be saying a few words of recognition about her as part of this closing event, she quickly reminded me that in a normal year, this is not done, that recognition is typically reserved for outgoing board members only. My reply was, well, 2020 was no normal year. Emily, your steadfast and selfless leadership through a very abnormal year calls for the abandonment of past traditions so that we can celebrate your accomplishments and give you the praise you deserve. In the last year, Emily has guided the NCSEA board through the sudden tragic passing of our beloved friend and fellow board member, Susie Jorgensen, a pandemic of unprecedented proportion, and social unrest caused by the death of George Floyd. Add to this the fact that NCSEA was entering the second year of implementation of its strategic plan and was forced to pivot to operating 100% in the virtual environment just 2 months into her presidency. And you can see that 2020 confronted her with a perfect storm. In her address on day one of this event, Emily laid out all of NCSEA's accomplishments and successes that were realized in 2020 under her leadership. I don't think I'm alone when I say that hearing all of them listed out together was jaw-dropping. In a year filled with uncertainty, turmoil, and unprecedented challenges, NCSEA's progress toward achieving its vision was virtually unaffected. Emily's ability to lead toward a vision without wavering or wandering off course is perhaps her strongest leadership quality. Many people, myself included, can be distracted by that shiny object that comes into our field of vision and veered off course temporarily. Not so for Emily. It doesn't matter what obstacles pop up or how much noise there is around an issue. Her ability to maintain focus on the greater objective is truly amazing. In a year like 2020, this attribute proved to play a critical role in the achievement of almost all of NCSEA's successes. Emily inspires others through leading by example. She works harder than anyone else. She's a consensus builder. She listens. She acts thoughtfully and swiftly. It's infectious. When you're working with Emily on something, you always have the sense that no matter how difficult things are, or how difficult the conversation is, it's going to turn out well in the end. The most impressive aspect of this is that she makes it all seem so damn easy. I could go on, but there are others that wanted to share their admiration of Emily's leadership accomplishments too. So, Emily, I'll close by expressing on behalf of the NCSEA board our heartfelt thanks to you for your tireless commitment to the profession and for the exemplary leadership you have shown this past year. Congratulations on a very successful term as NCSEA president, and please know that we are all sleeping better knowing that you will remain on the board as past president until April 2022. I'll now turn over to staff to share the video.
So I've never really seen Emily ever ride off into the sunset on anything that she has devoted herself to. Emily is an inspiring individual as a person, a leader, a board member, and as a volunteer for our profession. Watching her work inspires me to try to keep up. What I admire most about Emily is her ability to multitask to a degree like nobody I've ever seen. I cannot understand how she can do so much and accomplish it so effectively. Anybody who has ever seen her in action will certainly agree.
What I admire most about Emily is that I think she might be Superwoman. Think about it. She has 3 young kids, a husband, she's a partner and manages an office, for a big structural engineering firm. And she still finds the time to be a rock star within SEOC and NCSEA. There aren't many people that contribute to the level she does, and she does it all with apparent ease. I still think there's a cape on underneath that dress.
I think the one quality that I admire the most about Emily is the way that she leads and the way that she leads by example. She's been so impactful to the industry, and she holds herself in such high regard that it's impossible not to have a great deal of respect for her. And I think that simply by her presence being in the room or being part of a conversation or being part of an effort, it really just, everyone holds himself to a higher standard, because you know, with the amount of respect you have for Emily, that you just don't want to let her down. And so I think that's really the thing I admire most about her, is the way that she carries herself and just inspires the people around her to do better and be better. I think another thing that Emily does extremely well is that she identifies opportunities for people to be successful. And it's not only just the opportunities that she identifies, but she also then identifies individuals who can be successful in those opportunities. And a lot of times, I think that Emily's able to identify qualities or characteristics of people that maybe we don't identify in ourselves. And I believe that through her engagement and her encouragement, her mentorship, she's able to push these individuals like myself to take on roles or take on responsibilities within an organization, whether it be NCSEA or otherwise, that we might not have taken on without her encouragement. So I've always really appreciated her ability to believe in people and to encourage and create environments where those people can be successful.
Hi, Emily. It's a great opportunity to talk a little bit about you. I been pleased to get to know you for the many years that we have. I remember back to when you were one of the original 3 of the young members group. And I was asked by Ben Nelson to lead the group to try to get it more focused and energized. And you and I became good friends at that stage. I quickly realized along the way that you are a great leader and you had a lot of potential in you. And that has certainly exhibited itself through your career. You're an excellent structural engineer, and I can't thank you enough for all your seismic guidance along the way. Every time I had something that was a little tricky on the East Coast, you would quickly point me in a direction that would allow me to come to a solution. So thank you for that. I've also appreciated your ability to call me out when I wasn't quite paying attention to any one of your seminars. I loved when you would be talking about wind and say, "Okay, Tom, what about blah, blah, blah?" And I would look up and I knew I was embarrassed because you caught me. But I thought that was kind of fun. I enjoyed the times where you and I went running together, right? It was back when I was trying to lose some weight. And I ran pretty slowly, and still kind of do. And you were willing to get up in the mornings with me every once in a while, and you'd go out and run with me and kind of keep me on a pace. And I certainly appreciated that. I think you have made, NCSEA a better organization, certainly more focused, not only as a young member, but certainly as a board member, and then most recently as president of NCSEA during a very, very difficult year. I do hope you'll continue to stay with NCSEA, stay close to the organization, continue to help out, and I hope that you and I will be able to interact similarly in the future. So, Emily, thank you for all you do for NCSEA and for the friendship that you and I have fostered over the years.
Emily, I just want you to know how much I've always admired and appreciated your passion for making our profession the best it can be, for volunteering your time in so many ways, for demonstrating visionary leadership in everything you have done, and for setting such a high bar for the rest of us to try to match. Your year as NCSEA president may have had more of its share of unexpected moments, but you handled it all as all of us would have expected, with confidence and compassion, and with courage and conviction. Given the circumstances, many other volunteers would have been willing to settle for just getting through the year, but we all knew that would not be your approach. Thanks in large part to your leadership, this past year has been very successful. We've made progress on many initiatives. We're making a positive impact on our profession on many fronts. You were the right leader for NCSEA at the right time. Looking back over the years, I think that statement actually applies to more than just this past year and more than just NCSEA. Your passion for our profession and enthusiastic spirit are contagious. Those who volunteer with you are motivated to do more, want to do it better, and are not afraid to try something new. On a personal note, I'm thankful that the person I randomly met at a meeting 10 years ago has become one of my most trusted professional colleagues and simply a great friend. Thank you, Emily, for all you've done. You certainly deserve some time off, but I also cannot wait to see what you're going to do next.
Emily, your vision, your strategic thinking, and your leadership has helped set NCSEA on a path to continued success in the future. The membership and the staff can't thank you enough for your tireless efforts and continuous sacrifice to help NCSEA and to help the profession. NCSEA is a better organization today and will be a better organization tomorrow because of your leadership.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you everyone for your very kind words in that unexpected video. I promise I'll be quick, but I do want to just thank first the staff for putting up with me this past year. I distinctly remember Al coming to Al with a really non-traditional program idea, and Al telling me, Emily, your ideas terrify me. And I know that he's not wrong. I'm thankful to have had the support and the surroundings of a board and staff who have put up with my abundance of meetings with a scarcity of breaks, and for allowing me to venture into tough topics and uncharted territory. I'd like to briefly thank my firm, Martin Martin, for supporting me through a less than ideal year to be spending time on non-billable work, and in particular to my boss, Ben Nelson, who not only brought me into Martin Martin, but first introduced me to NCSEA. I'd like to thank my kids, Connor, Taylor, and Tegan. Thank you for being such self-sufficient little creatures this past year with homeschooling, biking to school, and generally taking care of each other. For listening to my practice speeches and telling me I say too much. And more importantly, thank you for being proud of what I'm doing, for bragging to your teachers and your friends that your mom is the president. To close, I just want to share a quick story with you guys from the 2013 NCSEA Summit in Atlanta. We were in a hotel that year, so I was taking the elevator ride down from my room to the technical sessions to actually deliver a presentation on the last day of the summit. And as I got into the elevator, there was a man in the elevator already. And just to fill the space of an empty elevator, he asked me what I was there for. And I told him the structural engineering conference. And he told me, that's great that you're here to support your husband. And I stepped out of the elevator door. And as the door closed, I told him, no, my husband's home taking care of our 3 kids. So I'd like to say thank you to my husband, Justin. Thank you for being my rock, for sacrificing your own professional aspirations for mine, for taking care of the kids when I was taking care of NCSEA. Thank you for believing in me and supporting me unconditionally. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to have served as your NCSEA pandemic president during this time of both challenge and opportunity. I look forward to the continued growth and success under the Quesenberry administration.
Thank you, Emily. Well, that concludes the ceremonial portion of the board transition. I'd like to take this opportunity to share some thoughts that I've had in the first few weeks of my presidency with you. First of all, I wanted to thank all of you for entrusting me with the presidency of NCSEA. There are indeed some big shoes to fill, and I'm looking forward to the challenge of building off the momentum that prior NCSEA leaders have created. I see this as an opportunity to give back to an organization that has given me so much in the terms of knowledge, aptitude, love for structural engineering, and perhaps most of all, friendships. I'm emboldened by having such a great team to work with. I could not ask for a more competent, versatile, and caring board. Our committee leadership and robust volunteer base continue to enable NCSEA to make great strides every year. Rounding out this dream team is the NCSEA staff, headed by Al Spada, our executive director. Al and his staff are the engine that just makes everything go. It's the people that make NCSEA special, and I feel lucky to be a part of it. I also want to thank each of you in attendance for the time and effort you choose to invest in our profession. Through the great work you do while you're in the office and through your contribution that you make within your own SEA, you're both setting an inspirational example for future leaders and paving the way for the next generation of structural engineers. NCSEA would not be what it is today without volunteers like you, our boots on the ground, out there striving to realize our shared vision. As I'm sure it was for your SEA, 2020 was a year of unprecedented adversity for NCSEA. While NCSEA finds itself still facing a few adverse conditions as it begins the new fiscal year, it's beginning to feel like 2021 will be a year of recovery and return to some version of the old normal. NCSEA's journey over the last 12 to 13 months got me thinking about the importance of resilience in both our personal and professional lives. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about it with you. Resilience is a word that's becoming more and more a part of conversations that we structural engineers are having these days. The seemingly greater frequency of catastrophic events that affect the function of our society has brought the topic of resilience to the forefront. And we find our profession uniquely positioned to have a significant influence on building a more resilient future around the globe. Events such as earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, and winter storms have always resulted in a call on our profession to intervene and assist with recovery and developing new paths forward. The recent protests, riots, wildfires, and pandemic have heightened the call for resilience in our communities, and our profession is once again stepping up to help. Resilience lies at the core of everything NCSEA does. This is not by accident. NCSEA's stated vision for the future is, and I quote, "Structural engineers are valued for their contributions to safe structures and resilient communities." Nearly every NCSEA initiative and accomplishment that Emily mentioned in her day one address was in direct alignment with this vision. The success that the association experienced in what was arguably one of the most challenging years of its existence is proof that our strategic plan is working and that achieving our vision is within our grasp. This year, NCSEA will be continuing to help build a more resilient future for the communities we live in. We will also be continuing to help build a more resilient future for the structural engineering profession. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, NCSEA will be continuing to help build a more resilient future for its member organizations and for itself. As leaders within your state organization, you can play a big part in this effort. I'm here today with a request for each of you. Help us build it. Help us build more resilient communities. While you contribute to community resilience to some degree every day through your code compliant designs, there is much more you can do. If your SEA doesn't have a resilience or sustainability committee, spearhead the effort to establish one and feel free to lean on NCSEA for help in doing so. Promote NCSEA's SEER committee at the state level by encouraging your members to get certified as post-disaster building safety evaluators so that structural engineers will be well positioned to aid in the recovery from a future catastrophic event in your region. Follow the example set by the Structural Engineers Association of California and engage in conversations about how structural engineers can help improve functional recovery with legislators in your state. Improved community resilience is possible. All you have to do is help us build it. Help us build a more resilient future for the structural engineering profession. NCSEA is taking the lead in the movement to make our profession more diverse, equitable, and inclusive through the efforts of state and national SE3 committees and collaboration with organizations such as the National Society of Black Engineers and the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. These efforts promise to foster positive change and growth within our industry that will make it more appealing and inviting to future generations of engineers. You can follow the recent example set by SEA Oregon, shout out to my homies, who just a few days ago established an SE3 committee and is joining the DEI conversation. Way to leverage the NCSEA resources and help us build it, SEAO. Help us build a more resilient future for our profession by improving the visibility and stature of structural engineers in your region. Whether it's through helping to elevate your SEA's social media presence or by giving a presentation on structural engineering at your local high school, your voice can make a huge impact. When you receive the PR marketing survey in your email in the next couple of weeks, open it up and complete it and have your voice heard. The main way to shed the hidden profession stigma that structural engineering suffers from is to make our presence known. And it's going to take a collective effort to move that needle. Help us build it. Help us build resilience within NCSEA. Just like your state organization, NCSEA requires a robust pipeline of leaders in order to sustain its march toward our vision. That pipeline is comprised of people like you who care enough about the profession to devote energy to improving it. I encourage each of you to find a place of interest within NCSEA and join the conversation so that you can help lead the organization into the future. You can also enhance NCSEA's ability to achieve its vision through a donation to the NCSEA Foundation. Every dollar allocated from this foundation directly supports NCSEA's mission and strengthens the movement to resiliency. Help us build it. Help us build resilience within your own SEA. Organizations such as ours live and die based on the engagement and support of our volunteers. Build off what you've learned through this leadership retreat and inspire your volunteer base to build programs that augment your organization's value proposition. Mine NCSEA's website for tools and resources that you can put to use tomorrow within your organization to help improve engagement of your members and productivity of your committees. Apply for an NCSEA grant to fund a new program or initiative. Let us help you build it. Well, hopefully I've done a sufficient job of cheerleading and have given you some ideas on how you might join NCSEA on the road to resilience in our communities, professions, and associations. I encourage each of you to take the words you heard from Mark Engel on day one of this event to heart and look up and out as opposed to in the rearview mirror to find new paths forward to a more resilient future. Let's build it together. Well, with that final call to action made, I'd like to ask Michelle Ryland to join me to share a few last announcements with you before you leave us today.
Thanks, Ed. Before we do that, might we recognize the new board of directors for NCSEA?
Oh, that's right. I forgot to do that, didn't I? I apologize. So yes, so we have, this is my dream team here. I'm be serving as president. Dave Horos will be served from Chicago. SEA Illinois will be serving as vice president. Ryan Kirsting from the great state of California will be serving his second year as secretary. Returning to the board this year is Chris Serino from SEA New York, and he'll be serving his first term as treasurer. Emily, as we've said before, will be serving as past president and advisor and rock for all of us. Eli Gottlieb from New York and Jamie Lorenz from Montana will be serving their second year as director. And joining us this year in their first term as director from Georgia is Sarah Appleton, and from Metro DC is Brian Petruzzi. Look forward to working with all of you in the coming year.
Ed, thank you very much for your call to action. I know I speak for everyone on this call when I say that we really look forward to seeing where NCSEA goes under your leadership. And now, as we close out the second annual SCA Leadership Retreat, I just want to take another moment to thank all of you for attending the various sessions over the last few days. NCSEA exists to serve you and your SCA, and we hope that you've made some great connections over the last few days and have some great ideas to take back to your organization. As always, we welcome any feedback you might have, as well as suggestions for topics to cover in the future. Ed, any last thoughts before we get to the fun?
Absolutely. I always have last thoughts. So I think we all owe a special thanks to all of the staff and volunteers that made this event possible. Al, Leo, Susan, Kat, Dana, Amelia, thank you all for all the effort pulling together the content, organizing each session, and hosting this amazingly informative and productive 3-day virtual event. A huge task pulled off without a hitch, except for that one I just made. That's on me. And also to Michelle Ryland, Rob Butterfield, Ryan Kirsting, and all the rest of the Internal Communications Committee. Thank you for the countless volunteer hours you spent on the visioning and execution of this retreat. This event promises to yield positive results within NCSEA's member organizations this year, so there's a lot to be proud of. And now, the minute you've all been waiting for, the raffle. Take it away, Michelle.
Thanks, Ed. It is my pleasure to announce that one very lucky person today will be walking away a winner. And winner of what, you may ask? Winner of a $100 prepaid Visa gift card, not this one, and a straight off of New York Fashion Week, a 100% cotton vintage I Love Structural Engineering t-shirt. What great prizes. I can hear the crowd cheering. Now, in order to win these great prizes, you just have to attend at least one event in the last 3 days. So I have all of the names in this hat of a MLB baseball team that I will not show because it will offend some people in Chicago. But I'm going to draw a name and I'm going to hand it over to Ed to read the winner. So I've got the name. I don't know who it is. Ed, are you ready?
Yep. Oh, wow. All the way from Chicago. Let's see. The winner is Catherine Rivera, SCA New York. Congratulations, Catherine.
Yes, congratulations, Catherine. Leo will be in touch with you to send you your prizes.
All right, I guess that leaves the last order of business. I just want to personally invite you all to the 2021 NCSEA Structural Engineering Summit, October 13th through 15th. The summit's currently being planned as a hybrid with both a virtual and an in-person option. Unless things change, the in-person event will be at the Hilton Midtown in New York City. So Catherine, maybe you can buy me a drink using that gift card if I see you there. The summit will include top-notch educational sessions, countless opportunities for networking, the annual Excellence in Structural Engineering Awards, and of course, lots of fun. I hope to see you all there. Thank you all for your time.